Welcome back to Mortuary Mayhem, a podcast by funeral service professionals for funeral service professionals, where any day above ground is a good one.
Welcome back, folks. I'm really hoping, I know this is around the holiday season, so I hope everybody is enjoying time with their families, if that's possible. I know for many of you, especially in this industry, work is unfortunately there, and we serve our families, and we take great pride in that. So, but I really hope that everyone is having a great holiday season. And for today, I wanted to talk about management. But what brought this up was actually two games that I found on my phone. I was just came to light that there was mortuary versions of these simulated games, and I remember back when I was much younger than I am today, that I remember like Roller Coaster Tycoon and some of these computer-based games, and you paid, a set fee. Maybe that was your gift for the holidays that you got from your family. And you got, for the set fee, you could play as much as you wanted. You paid for expansion packs. You did Google searches, or I don't know if Google's around back then, but you searched searched around for cheat codes to, get whatever you wanted. And I kind of enjoyed those. I enjoyed those simulated games back then. Got a lot of, that was how I spent a lot of my free time. So when I saw this, I said, this would be great. Let me look up some of these simulated games. I heard there was mortuary versions of them. I started playing some ski resort ones and zoo ones and everything like that. So let me check this out. And I can't say that I'm as pleased with the current versions of these simulated games as I was maybe in the 90s, in early 2000s. I thought, quite frankly, I think they were better back then. Maybe I'm biased. Maybe if I go, if I downloaded some of these older games, some of these vintage games, maybe I would have a different opinion today. But in comparison, it's all about the ads, which is fine. That's, it made the game for free, so I'm no complaints there. I think the ads are a little bit ridiculous, some of them, so I think that they could improve the ad quality and the ad style, but and that's fine. So you watch your ads, whatever, you put them on the side, you wait, you get points, you do whatever you want. But I downloaded I found the one that came to mind was Idle Mortician. That's the one that people were talking about, so I downloaded that one. And then on my own, I found Mortician Inc. So I downloaded both of them. I have them side by side. I'm actually playing them both side by side. At the same time, I go between the two. But what came up, I said this is going to be about management. So what I noticed was that it actually has two different management business models between these two games. And when and again, I'm not biased against one or the other. There's no, I have no interest in either of these games. There's no, no disclaimers needed here. Just playing two games, played for free, have not put a cent into them. I haven't paid for anything at all between the two games. But for Idle Mortician, Idle being for those that aren't familiar, Idle's a series of games, Idle Mortician, Idle Mind, Idle Ski Resort, Idle whatever, okay? And they have a whole series of them. So for the Idle game, I got to a certain point where all of a sudden you click the ads and they freeze your phone. It plays the ad, but when you click to X out of it, or the ad either freezes, or when you go to click to X out of it at the end so you can get your points, get your coins, get whatever you're going to get, it doesn't allow you to click anything. It doesn't allow you to even get the game that you're getting advertised about. It doesn't allow you to X out or anything. So I started searching. I did a quick web search and found that was actually common. Nobody mentioned it about the Idle Mortician, probably because we're a small niche of people here. So the bigger group was some things about like the idle mine and whatnot that did mention that this happens. And those were mentioned a very long time ago. So if it is a current glitch, it's something that they've known about for a long time and something they haven't fixed. So that's a little concerning. So I don't know what goes behind that, why it's freezing, but obviously I'm not the only one. It's not my phone. This is something that is common, apparently, with the idle games. But unfortunately, without being able to watch those ads, you do get to a point where you can't get the coins. You get a few every day, but other than that, it's going to take forever in order to do that. So you're kind of at a standstill without the ability to do that without watching or without paying, which is fine. I respect that people, you pay the $15 you get without the ads. I respect that. But unfortunately, given that the ads was an option, it wouldn't allow. The ads are kind of not working. So again, going between the two management styles. The idle mortician is definitely more focused on a business that is not customer focused, is more business focused. And, it's definitely one of these tycoon, how much money can I make out of the customer kind of mentalities that's driven here. Again, that is what a lot of these games, no matter what, tend to promote, and that's all the simulations have always been like that, right? I remember Roller Coaster Tycoon was about, charging people to even use the bathroom. I remember I always got a good laugh out of that. And then I went to Europe and found out they actually do charge people to either use the bathroom or they sell you toilet paper on your way in a lot of these European countries. So that made a lot more sense when I traveled. But I always thought that was funny as a child. So the one thing I notice, again, it does have that heavy business focus. How much money can we get? What can we charge you for? We're nickel and diming you. But that's only part of it. And there's some things with like VIP. So these VIP limos pull up, these VIP helicopters pull up. You click on them. Again, it gives you an ad, or you can, pay money or use diamonds that you accumulate, or again, pay money to get those diamonds. So that way you can get what the VIP brings. And I respect that's kind of cool, brings in extra money. That's that thing. I have no problem with that. I think that's great. Again, saying a high paying customer, but you have to work to get that. And I think that's a good business model. I have no quarrels with that. Music in the chapel, you're clicking to get extra money from that, so you can consider that some type of donation or music fee, and there's some value to that. The graves turn over, so like any of these things, again, not something we do in the United States. We don't have the cemeteries don't turn over the graves, but again, if you do travel to some European or British countries, you'll find that that's more common, where the graves are reused every couple years. So there is, that's not completely out of the question, the way that they do that. You have parking. Okay, I can respect that. We pay to park. You got I'm looking at the screen right now. I got a line of cars. I got a line of customers lining up. And you pay for advertising. Okay, I can see value in that. I pay for the customer. I can see value in that. I have to every so often, click to get more customers. And so these are all relative things, right? You build out your crematory, you build out your lounges, you build out your memorial rooms. You have to pay staff, so the more staff you have, the more efficient you are. The more embalmers you have, the more efficient you are. And you obviously pay lots of money to upgrade each room. I think that there's a lot of value in that. Now, the same thing applies to Mortician Inc. You have a funeral home, you're paying to build out. The more money you bring in, the more customers you bring in, the more you can build them out. So there's obviously very similar methods between this. And you're paying, right? You have to wait till you have enough money. You have to wait till you have enough coins. You have to wait till you have enough whatever, diamonds or, things. this I find has another factor, and it counts how many burials you do. The Mortician Inc. Counts how many burials. So for every burial, you get so many things, and you can build certain areas, certain rooms, certain whatever, once you get X amount of burials. And I thought that was kind of cool, that it's actually counting that and allows that, so it's not just a monetary thing. It actually does have another factor involved in there. And it actually has, they both have different worlds where you can travel. Idle Mortician has where you can go to different seasons, so you can earn to get to a certain point where you get to winter, or spring, or fall. Whereas Mortician Inc. has, if you get to different levels, you could go to different countries or cities or whatnot. Right now, they're running kind of a special thing where you're in a medieval world, where you go over there. Your regular game doesn't go anywhere. It's just paused for a couple days. I think this is running for like 3 days. So, but it runs for those 2 or 3 days, where you're in this medieval world and you're running a medieval mortuary, essentially. Obviously, definitely not historically accurate. If you know anything about funeral history, obviously there's a lot of inaccuracies in how this is, but it's kind of fun. They got wagons picking up the bodies. They have, and the difference is, rather than just cars showing up and like you're seeing with Idle Mortician, where cars show, these limo like cars, there's unlimited amount that every time you click for a customer, one shows up, that they're just lined up and they're waiting there for the embalming, the embalmer to be ready, goes out with a cot, picks up the body, goes in, preps it, and, it's really an assembly line kind of thing. Once they're done, the porters then go pick up, are waiting. You have to wait, if they're overused, then you have to wait for them to have enough of a rest period. And then once they've rested enough, they go and they pick up, they casket the body and they bring it out, and they're either going to the cemetery or they're going to the crematory next door. Crematory is also something that you built and that you're managing and maintaining. But the difference is, Mortician Inc., you're actually watching, it's just a little bit more creative, where bodies are dying on the sidewalk. Just another spin on it. And then the hearse goes out and picks them up, and eventually get to a point where now you're getting to pick up bodies from the hospital, which opens another opportunity. Whereas Mortician Inc., basically the bodies are, these wagons or these hearses are going out and picking up these bodies, bringing them back. Obviously, the people need a rest period, that are picking them up. They put the body on a table. That body's available for when the embalmer is ready. When the embalmer is ready, the embalmer goes out, and then between each, so they embalm a body, and then instead of assembly lining this, where they just keep constantly working, what they do is, in Mortician Inc., the embalmer, the hearse driver, and everybody else, that every time they pick up a body or every time they embalm a body, they then go and take a break. So you have to build toilets. They go and take that break there. They go to, there's a lounge area, and there's a kitchen area. And you build these gradually, so eventually, at first they're just working. Then once you're able to build a toilet, then they go take a turn at the toilet. That does create a line after a while, so you want more and more toilets. Eventually you build a lounge that gives them another place that they could go. And again, having enough seats, having enough table space, having enough everything definitely keeps them moving faster, so that they get back to work. But, and you can build like a chapel, and you can build all of these different things. Rooms for the porters means that there's more porters to move bodies. You buy cemetery space. Both of them have a place where you buy cemetery space, and obviously you have to have a turnover there. If you don't have enough space, then, then you're going to need to build more, or you're going to have to wait. So the big difference is, things that I noticed, or things that get under my skin or whatnot between these, when it does come to management style and what are we promoting. comes down to, maybe how this is portrayed. So Mortician Inc., I think, does a really good job at portraying proper management. We're taking care of our employees, right? We have more employees. We give our employees more space to rest. They both have that. They both have where you can, for the porters, that there's a place for them to rest, and there's they do get a rest period. I respect that. But Mortician Inc., I think, focuses a lot more time on rest. That after every time they go to the bathroom, after every time they go to the kitchen, or they go to the lounge, or they go somewhere, that everybody does. Everybody gets a rest period at some point. And yes, by paying, you're paying to increase the value of something, but you're not decreasing the time frame necessarily that it takes. Whereas all the idle games tend to focus more on the more you pay, the more you can decrease their rest time. The more you take away that rest time, the more you make them work harder. And, both of them are going to have where you can increase your profits. You're going to increase, and that's valuable, right? The more you build a company, the more you're worth, the more frills you have, the more, the more services you're worth. You should get more money, and your services do cost more, in comparison to someone that hasn't put in that much money, and doesn't put on the show, or doesn't have the frills or the value or the resources. So there's value to that. But as far as cutting into rest period, I think with these games it's better where it says, hey, look, and I think Mortician Inc. does a good job at this, is saying, as a good man, what makes a good manager? A good manager is one that gives their employees enough rest where they feel valued. And if your employees are overworked, that we're going to give you we're going to employ more people. We're not going to have you working 90 hours a week. That's considered 2 jobs at that point. That means that you should have at least 2 people. 2 people can work, still get overtime. That's still, if you had 90 hours a week, then that means that's 2 people working 45 hours. If you had 80 hours a week, then that's 2 people working 40 hours. So you're better off having, as a manager, you're better off having people work normal hours, see their family, value them. Because when somebody feels valued and not overused and overabused and under-rested and all of that, and they don't have their family complaining, they go home, they spend time with their family, they tend to feel more valued. And when I talk to students, and a lot of them say, look, I'll make ends meet. And a lot of them say, they'll say, look, this place pays me more. And yes, that's definitely a value of how much you get paid. A lot of them will say, look, I need the overtime to pay. But a lot of those people leave. I don't see too many. They for the short term, they do talk about, hey, I need the overtime to make ends meet. I know I was at that point once. I need the overtime to make ends meet. I need, I'm going to put those hours in. And they put everything else aside. And I think sometimes as managers, we see that and go, wow, they're willing to work. They're willing to do this. I don't need anybody else to do this. As a manager, one, you're paying more, because if you are paying overtime, you're paying this person time and a half for half of their work, when you could be paying 2 people a normal wage. Which also means you can pay them both more. So take the amount that time and a half, that extra, that extra amount that you'd be paying one person, hire 2 people, have 2 people do the job, but then spread that half pay over both of their payrolls, to increase their overall wages, and you're going to have 2 very happy employees. And rather than one miserable employee that's very happy in the short term, they're getting money, lots of money in the short term, but then they're not going to last long. The time in this industry, and this is well studied. The ABFSC did research. I was on that research committee for that. The NFDA did some research on this, and both groups came up with the same conclusion that we already knew the data that the average person does not last more than 5 years in this industry, in the funeral industry. That's just the nature of the beast. So how do we fix that problem? We're going to have a lot of people that say, not me, it's not going to be me, and then, then it happens. But how do we fix this problem? And I have a lot of ideas how we fix this problem, but the ABFSC and the NFDA, both groups came up with the same conclusion, that it was the workplace, maybe some workplace toxicity, but really it comes down to people not feeling valued. So how do we make our employees feel valued? And it does come down to, again, a lot of them say, yes, I like the money, but if they have the job, at the end of the day, they will make ends meet. And they'll make ends meet. And if they're happy, they're going to dedicate their life. They're going to vow their lives to your company. And simply because they're appreciated. And they want to learn. They want to grow in your company. They want to be given value in their company. They want to have a say in your company. And that's just what it comes down to. They want a voice. They want to feel valued. They want to feel like, they're not pushed, nobody wants to be pushed aside. Everyone wants to, when they're coming out, again, I talk to students daily, but, the one thing that they all come down to is they want to be taught. They want to learn the skilled parts of this job because that's what they went to school for. So what they want is, yes, they are going to clean toilets, they're going to mow the lawn, they're going to paint the fence. When things are quiet, we're going to do all of that. That's just the nature of the small funeral home and how the small funeral home has always operated, right? All hands on deck, everybody does everything. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's just that's how everything works. So those things, obviously, if you have the staff and you have busy moments and you have slow moments, you do make it all work. But what they don't want is to be the only person doing those skills, and they never get to see the inside of the prep room. They never get to see arrangements. They're never on funerals in a capacity that they get to learn, right? They may be in a capacity, they get to go to the graveside, they get to do things, they get to shuffle people around. But if they're quickly sent to do non-skilled work, and they never get to be the one to speak, they never get to be the one to, in the driver's seat, within that gray area that they're allowed to be. And again, we can't be scared. I know the laws, do have gray areas, and the laws do have, very, things that they just can't do. But we have to work within those confines to say, this is what you're allowed to do under supervision. And let's focus our apprenticeship system on fixing, teaching them. We can fix the problems that we're seeing with, in the prep room. We can have much better bodies. With how we service family, we can do a much better job if we're training our employees to do a great job. And I know we have a golden standard. We have some amazing firms out there that do exactly that. And I want to commend those that really do that. But we do need to work together. I know not everyone's got an educational mind, and it does become this business mind of, hey, look, I'm the one that licensed. I need these other things done. You're free to do those things, whereas I'm going to do these skilled items, and I understand that. But when the time allows, when the opportunity allows, it's very important to bring your apprentices into that prep room, into that arrangement room. And I know you don't always have the time. You have a lot of things to do, and you're short-staffed. You're going to have them do, what needs to be done when you divide and conquer. But bringing them in means that you now have an employee that understands, that can help you. And when you do have multiple families, they can be there to help you. When you have multiple decedents, they can be there to help you, because they understood, because you were teaching them. And I do have a lot more grand ideas on how to restructure the apprenticeship system. I'm sure at some point I'll do a whole podcast on just that, but and I am working on typing out some of these things, but part of this is, again, the mentality of, where do we put our focus? Okay, how do we treat our employees correctly? And you will get a lot more out of them. So looking at these games again, I'm going back to that, is, again, Mortician Inc. Does put a lot more focus on that, a lot more focus on the people. How do we, keep everyone happy? I think it's a good model. And then again, the Idle Mortician does put a lot more focus on the business model, which is not unexpected, because that's the whole nature of these tycoon type games. One thing that got under my skin, though, is in the embalming, in the prep room, on Idle Mortician, that is, they have like jewelry and crowns, and I mean, obviously it's a game, so you get some creative things, but necklaces and golden pipes and all of these things that pop up that you click on them and you get money for them, which is basically implying that we're pawning off items that we find. And I, just being a embalmer myself, that kind of got under my skin just to see that implied. I understand it's a tycoon game. You're trying to make as much money as you can, and they're going to find any way to do that. But anybody that's not in the industry that's playing something like this, again, I know we all worry about perception as to what do people think, and do people think that that's what we're actually doing, or that we actually pawning off people's, items. So that got under my skin a little bit. But other than that, I think they're both great games. Again, it would be better if the ads on Idle Mortician worked, and that you could actually move forward in the game, but I already mentioned that. And looking at just the structure, again, Mortician Inc. does focus on more like lounge and comfortable setting looks for their employees, versus Idle Mortician definitely has more of an assembly line where all the porters are just, all your funeral assistants are just lined up on benches, getting a quick rest and then moving on. And again, the more you pay, the shorter you can shorten their rest period. You could give diamonds and, or pay money and pretty much eliminate their rest periods. So, again, maybe not the best, definitely fits a model that many people follow, but it may not be the one that I'd want to broadcast or portray as the most efficient or the one that's going to move us forward. You can push your employees to the edge, but eventually they leave, and they don't come back. We've seen a lot of people that are left the funeral industry entirely, simply because, to their employer they looked happy, but in reality they weren't feeling appreciated because they didn't learn the skills. Then they got licensed and they realized how much they didn't learn. So again, I've noticed that those that tend to tell me how much they're learning, and they're saying, hey, look, I'm in the prep room, I'm in the arrangement room, I'm learning these skills every day. And this is the apprentices that tend to last the longest, tend to make it past the 5 years, continue in this industry. Not all of them, but the majority of them tell me throughout their schooling how well they feel appreciated, how their boss will give them a bonus when their boss goes on vacation, just to thank them for picking up the extra slack. They tell me how, how they're getting experience and how they're seeing and doing, and they're getting hands-on. When an urn needs to go to the cemetery, they get to bring the urn. Again, gray areas. They don't, they're not doing a procession, they don't have a real body, but they get to, talk to the families, again, within reason, within, the confines of what the licensure allows, but that their boss is not afraid to get them involved. Their boss, gives them a voice, their boss listens to them, their boss wants to hear what they have to say, and, that speaks volumes for appreciation, feeling like you have a part in the business. And, it's the same thing. I've been watching 6 Feet Under, believe it or not, I have not seen that yet. But, everyone always talked about it. They always reference it. I have the DVD sitting in my office, actually, and I never did it, but I'm now watching it on Netflix, despite having the DVDs, because now I don't have a DVD player. But go figure, right? But after all these years, I looked and said, why am I going to watch this? I used to watch, I'd be, be in the room with people watching like Grey's Anatomy and ER wasn't bad, but things like Grey's Anatomy and some of these others would make me cringe, because I'd spend the entire time criticizing the inaccuracies that were behind some of these shows. Having worked with the living prior to the dead, I would, my father does the same thing, right? And we drive people nuts. People are like, will you just stop, criticizing everything and just let me watch and enjoy my show? And so I was like, I'm not going to watch this, because this is what I do for a living. Why am I going to watch something that I do for a living? Because it's going to get under my skin. I'm going to be cringing. I'm going to be criticizing the inaccuracies. And, I did watch, I'm not fully over the seasons. I think I'm in season 2. But, and yes, I do pick up on a few inaccuracies here and there. But for the most part, I have to commend it. It's a really good show. But the embalmer is constantly trying to say, look, I'm doing all this work. Can I be a partner? And you can see his demeanor change when he gets turned down for that. And, it is a family business. His name is not, part of that. He is an employee, and you do have to respect that. But being able to have a say or having a buy-in definitely gives people value, and being heard. I've seen a lot of employment settings where, you may have a great idea, and, you're basically told, to stay in your place, and, guess what? Listen to your employees, because that is where your value is going to come from. Your employees are going to see things on the front lines that you may not see. And especially if you've been doing this generationally, or you've been around for a while and all you're seeing is the way that one place does it. A lot of times your apprentices have had, through the schooling, has had to go to other places for clinicals, or they are talking to their fellow classmates. They're seeing what their classmates do. They're coming up with ideas during class. It's safe to say, hey, what are you guys learning? Hey, look, we have this difficult case. Did you learn how to do this in class? Because you know what? Your employee, right? Don't say, look, I've been doing this for 30 years. I know what I'm doing. You learn from me. That's not the way to go about this. Do not do that. Listen and just say, have you learned how to do this? Have the professors taught you how to do this difficult type of case yet? Ask them, because you'd be amazed what they might tell you. They might say, oh, well, we learned this, this, and this. And you say, well, yeah, that's great. Let's try that, because I didn't hear about that, but let's try that and see if it works. Or you can say, yeah, that's similar to what I'm doing. So let's, let me show you our method. And, if it's something you can do twice, then let's test something out, right? Let's try your method on the left leg and try my method on the right leg. And, and I'll show you how I do mine, and you can show me how your method as well. And, you know what? You may learn something. It's amazing. You might actually learn something from this experience, rather than never letting the newer methods enter your prep room or enter your facility, because that's just the way you've always done it. That's a very dangerous word to ever say, but, listening and hearing what these students are learning new things. They're learning new techniques. That's a great way to, to refresh your skill set by asking and learning what the newest techniques are out there, and deciding if you want to introduce them into your prep room. Now, you don't have to, but it doesn't hurt to see what they're learning, and give them a shot at testing out, because they're learning a lot of it through lecture. So giving them the opportunity to test it and see if it works and see how it works and experience that, and then you get to see it as well. And if you don't like it, that's, not a problem. And we would encourage you, if you do have a better method, bring that to your local colleges and show them and say, hey, look, I have a better method. Don't say that this is the only method, but bring it to the colleges and say, look, I learned that, your students learning this method. We tried it. Can I show you or explain my method, and see what you like about that. There's no harm in that. And, and then you can decide, if maybe the method that was taught was implemented correctly, or maybe the student, may or may not have had all the information and maybe it wasn't implemented, that's why it didn't work. So, again, talk to the professors and say, hey, how let's show how this was. I have a lot of students that have gone out and taken the methods that I've taught in the classroom, and then during lecture, hey, look, we tried that last week. We had a body that was edematous, and we tried your method, and it was amazing. It worked. Or, hey, we did this, but it dehydrated her too much. I think for the amount of edema, we used too much, Epsom salt, or whatever the case may be. And, we learned, we played with it and we learned that we're going to use less. Or, hey, my father went to a seminar and they said to use this much Epsom salt. But we're realizing that was for extreme edema. That wasn't for, maybe this minor edema that we were facing. But luckily, nobody saw her legs, and we were able to, fix that through other means, that we were able to reverse our effects or whatnot. So, these are great methods. If you have any other games out there, if you have any other management techniques that you find important, again, I'd love to hear them. Send them to podcast@mortuarymayhem.com, and maybe we'll get you on the air to talk about them. We always love to have guests on the show, and come on the show and talk about your methods on anything, really. Management, embalming, funeral directing, pre-needs. We'd love to hear it all. We need some bereavement folks out there. Again, let me know and we'll get you on the show. Till next time.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Mortuary Mayhem. For links to information discussed during this episode, please visit the website at www.mortuarymayhem.com. Do you have questions, comments, suggestions for topics, or want to be a guest on the show? Email us at podcast@mortuarymayhem.com. We should do this again sometime.